The year 2013 was a happy year for Lami. She was going to marry her first love and best friend and live happily ever after like she had always dreamed of since she was a little girl wearing her mother's shoes. Just before the year ran out, Lami said "I do" to the love of her life as they started their journey to forever. It's now 9 years since Lami has been married. Did she get her happily ever after? This is Lami's story. Lami's voice and name have been changed for anonymity.
I wouldn't describe the years I've spent so far in marriage as joyful or happy. I'll say that my marriage opened my eyes to the possibility of not being forgiven, of always being accused of being the one that is always doing wrong. At first I used to think it was just for fun, even though it used to hurt and annoy me, but I just felt maybe I was being too sensitive. Out of the blues, he would just say, your teeth are not white or your teeth are brown. People just say these things to make you feel good. Like before I had my baby, he would say stuff like, you've not yet had a baby and see how big your tummy is. When he needs something that I can't or I'm unable to give him at that point, sometimes it becomes a real big issue.
The 2018 Nigeria Demographic and Health Survey reports that in Nigeria, 31% of women have ever experienced physical violence since age 15. Lami is one of the more than one-third of ever married women who have experienced spousal violence, whether physical, sexual, or emotional by their current or most recent husband or partner. This means every 3 of 10 marriages experience this, according to the 2018 data. This is the abuse that we are not talking about. What is emotional abuse and is it a real thing? Aisha Buba is a psychologist who puts it in perspective.
Emotional abuse is a real form of abuse because it can be very overwhelming, just like other forms of abuse. So the fact that it cannot be seen doesn't make it any less of an abuse.
She says these are the signs to watch out for.
Unrealistic expectations on you, like making unreasonable demands, expecting you to just always be at their beck and call, and if you're unable to do that, then begin to emotionally blackmail you. A consistent pattern of abusive words, bullying the person, trying so hard to put down the person, constantly criticizing them or shaming them or trying to embarrass them or even blame them for your own attitude towards them. Things and also constantly invalidating you.
Even though she was in love, Lami says she observed some of these signs even before marriage.
Yes, I saw like the vindictive nature, the silent treatment, cold wars, or how do I put it now? Basically malice.
The Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act provides general protection not just for physical violence offenses, but for coercion, offensive conduct, willfully making false statements against another person. The Act also provides protection against offenses that affect women disproportionately, including forced financial dependence or economic abuse, forced isolation, emotional abuse, and psychological abuse, among others. Physical abuse in marriage can easily be identified because the scars are visible. How can the emotional abuse be proven in a court of law if there is a request for divorce? Executive Secretary of the Judicial Service Commission, Nasarawa State, Yahaya Shafa, explains how.
To prove it, one may bring a marriage counselor or even a psychologist to show how the things that the husband has been doing or the man has been doing has emotionally scarred her. The judge would use the evidence of those professionals to judge if the woman has indeed been emotionally abused.
Lami has not filed for divorce and does not intend to. So I asked if she has reported her case to anyone.
Close friends, relatives, a few of them. I've spoken with 2 pastors in particular. I haven't seen any professional per se. One of the pastors, he said if at all I needed to say anything, I was supposed to report my husband to his maker, which is God. I remember when I talked about our finances, how my husband seemed to always just need my money, my salary. I should try handing over my salary to my husband and see. That action of total submission will cause my husband to cherish me.
Many women report their abuse to family and friends, and not many go to the police to file a report for fear of victim blaming, acceptance of the violence as a proper reaction, and the lack of action. Or like Lami, when reported to their place of worship, they are told to pray about the situation. This is a sound of a preacher during a service.
You have to pray for the person. This is not a ground for divorce. You can't run out of the marriage because the person verbally insults you publicly. You don't repay evil for evil. That they insult you publicly or verbally abuse you and all of that is not a ground for you to walk out of your marriage. You have to pray, and you have to pray for them, teach them, express your views when you guys are not having any argument.
Many will say prayer is indeed necessary, but healing is also required for every form of abuse. Psychologist Aisha Buba gives practical steps a woman can take to heal from the situation of emotional abuse.
The first step is to acknowledge and recognize emotional abuse is going on here. Make yourself a priority. Stop worrying about pleasing the other person who is abusing you. Learn how to establish boundaries. Stop blaming yourself. Emotional abusive people would do the same thing to any and everyone they get a chance with, and try to build a support network. Try to speak to someone who can help you process your thoughts and emotions. For example, if you're in the FCT, you can call the 112 national emergency number to speak to a counselor. Healing is a process. You don't have to rush it. It may not happen magically overnight. It's a process.
Emotional abuse may not be seen as real because of its non-physical scars, but it is a reality many women live in, and it is time to talk about it. Ye Chenin Sasetu, Kiss FM.